I'm Sarah Tinsley. I'm the principal at Coram Deo Classical School. Coram Deo has been around since about 2004. We started out with grades 3 through 8, and then we added higher grades and lower grades, and we are now a full-service, non-traditional program. And so we have all the math, sciences, different languages, French, Spanish, Latin. We also have music and acting. We have apologetics, worldview classes. We're very excited that between the years 2009 and 2015, we've been able to graduate 60 students. You may be wondering what kind of education we have at Corum Deo. So I like to explain to you the niches that I think we fill in the community. One is that we're a classical school, and that there are lots of definitions to that. Another is that we really are homeschoolers because the students at Coram Deo only come for one day of class per week. And so the family conduct the rest of the education during the week. And then the last one is that we are accredited, and so that means that there's a certain element of rigor because we meet certain standards from our state. I'd like to talk about what Coram Deo is not. Coram Deo is not new or novel, and neither is it old or boring, but it's a tried and true way of educating that's based out of the home. C.S. Lewis says that when we have lost our way, the quickest way forward is usually to return home. And so that's what we're doing at Coram Deo, is to return home for our basis of education. You may be wondering about the name Coram Deo Classical School. Coram Deo is Latin for before the face of God. We want to always do our schooling remembering that God is always with us. Many of us would love to just have a cup of tea at home and relax. And that's a little bit why we like to school at home, because we're looking for a place of tranquility and to get away from the hustle and bustle of the modern world. And we can educate our children in that atmosphere. So if we're going to stay home, let's talk about what we'd be leaving to come home to. The Lost Tools of Learning by Dorothy Sayers was an essay that was written in about 1940. And so we talk about these lost tools, and you may not know what the tools are. These lost tools of learning are grammar, logic, and rhetoric, and this is the basis of a classical education. This has been called the Trivium. In the Trivium, the grammar stage usually represents the first 4 years of school, and it's when the child is full of questions, and they love to hear facts. They love to learn about different classifications in science. They like to hear about phonics rules. They're collecting information. The next stage is called logic, and this is the next 4 years, normally the 5th through 8th grade. And in these years, the students are constantly wondering why. So they're taking all the facts of what they learned in the first 4 years, and now they're asking questions about how those things relate. The next stage is called rhetoric. And rhetoric is a typical high school age student, and rhetoric students often want to tell you their position and why, and they're better at original speech and writing, and they're actually quite influential in some of their arguments. But if they haven't been given the tools in the grammar stage and in the logic stage, then their arguments aren't very logical. So now that we know what was lost, let's talk about when it was lost. We have two men that I'd like to discuss, Horace Mann and John Dewey. They both advance what we call a progressive type of education that emphasized learning by doing and rejected many of the traditional methods like memorization and classical language teaching. These men were instrumental in changing the way America educated our students. Education became not so much about developing children as about forming adults. This is when home ec education was added, driver's ed, and even PE in a curriculum no longer was teaching the skill of really playing a sport, but just individual skills that go with it. This is also when the space program became popular, and we were trying to make sure we were ahead of the Soviets, and so a new system named STEM was developed: science, technology, English, and math. In this program, there was no literature, history, debate, or language communications. The results of progressive education is that we have millions of graduates of so-called good public schools that show up in colleges every year totally ignorant of the basic outline of American history. They have never memorized a poem. They are unable to recall details of even one major work of literature. They are devoid of an understanding of English grammar, and as often or not, they know no fundamentals of spelling rules. Other systems in the world did not follow the American progressive educational system. In fact, in Germany and in other European countries, education is still based on what we call a liberal arts education. And liberal arts education is defined by a medieval term where a liberal person would be a free person, and this meant someone who did not have to go to work every day for their living. So people would either have a skill where they worked every day, or they were wealthy enough to just learn and read every day. So a liberal arts education is learning about all types of subjects. In Germany, the educational system for the engineers, they are required to take a liberal arts education which embraces things like Greek, Latin, logic, philosophy, and history. They do this because they realize that the classical education is needed. One of the professors of the engineering school says, "To give me a student who has been taught his Latin grammar, and I will answer for his chemistry." So the tools of the Trivium are the stages of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. But the thing that will be whittled or worked on with these tools are the actual subjects, the actual content. And so these things must be studied in order to use the tools. A chief goal is to master the use of a tool, and for mastering the tools, you must practice. So we encounter a little bit of a paradox in a classical education because we favor the use of the tools more than we really favor the content. But in practicing the use of the tools, we actually expose the students to more content than ever. This is called learning. Here are some examples of the Trivium in action. The first example is Martin Luther. In the first stage of grammar, a student would learn about Martin Luther, that he lived in Germany and that he translated the Bible into everyday language. A student who was in 5th through 8th grade in the logic stage would learn things that he wrote split the Catholic Church right down the middle and how much this affected the culture of the day. And then a high school student in a rhetoric stage would learn things that Martin Luther said and why anyone that's from the Nazi Party would have actually quoted something he said about the Jews. So you can see the continuum of learning, and without the grammar stage basis of facts and then the logic stage of wondering why, the student in rhetoric would never be able to dig deeper into controversial issues. So the way it works at Corum Deo is that when the students leave class for the week, they go home with a detailed pacer that tells what to do in each subject each day while you're home. We like to allow flexibility because you really are homeschooling, so a lot of students can double up and do 2 days worth of school in one if they know they have an activity that they're gonna need to be gone Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. By the end of the week, you have a checklist just to check off that you really have accomplished everything that the teacher assigned, and then when you come to school, you turn in all the work that was done. The teacher spends strategic time in each subject while they're at school, and then we go again another week where you have another pacer to keep working from at home. So it takes all the guesswork out of what should be done, how much work should be done. The teachers have been doing this for a while, and so they're really good at knowing whether your child is on grade level or not, and where to encourage you to maybe work a little harder or faster, or where to say, you know what, those things are fine. They're not behind at all, even when you as a parent might think they should be further ahead. We also take a lot of time and effort to communicate with teachers, and you can schedule a conference with your teacher. During the year, we have a conference where we bring in the children beginning in middle school. Parent, the child, and the teacher meet all together because it's really the three people talking about where the child can work harder, where the mom needs to begin to back off so that the student can gain some independence. We've also designed a character trait sheet where when a teacher sees different character traits that your child can work on. And for the guys, we encourage them to begin to act like gentlemen and open and close the door for ladies and carry things for teachers. And so we're trying to help a parent come alongside them and teach good habits of organization and good character qualities while we're doing school with them at the same time. One aspect about classical education is that it's language rich. So that means there's lots of reading, and we promote children reading, but also continue to read to the children. Even up into high school, we still really suggest that you read to your families. So classic literature, the books that we use, are judged by their influence, and they are great books because they contain certain great ideas that have given birth to great and ongoing conversations about what's true and virtuous. And so the word classic really preserves the meaning of being the very best. And that's what a classic book is. It's one of the very best that's been written. But books are classics because they've endured, meaning they're older works. They've been proven by positive assessment over time. And it's possible for a new book to one day be a great book, but only after wide critical acclaim and influence. Oh, another aspect of Coram Deo Classical School is the fact that it's rigorous. Because of our accreditation standards, we have a certain bar in which we hold the kids up to. So I'd like to talk about rigor a little bit because I want to make sure that it's not misunderstood. Hard work in academic rigor don't have to be something that's unpleasant. Classical educators hold to the paradox that joy and labor can live together. Something does have to be given up for this. We give up TV, video games, etc. But something wonderful is gained learning a new language, the thrill of reading a thick classic book, the marvel of learning a concept in science or math or history. When you think of diligence in another setting, is often not really distasteful. Any diligent athlete loves to perform to win. The diligent lover stops at nothing to win his lady. The diligent musician practices for hours and hours out of their love for music and their thirst for virtuosity. And the diligent student can be captured by this same zeal for knowledge. They can also gain skill and wisdom. So the classical educator encourages students to live up to their name of being a notch above the rest. And you as the parents must determine for yourselves, under the direction of the Lord, what's the best approach for your family. And for Coram Deo Classical School families, the best approach tends to be one that's focused on the classical method of the Trivium being carried out at home, where you can focus on the individual growth and development of your own student. And also you can expose your own student to your own worldview in the tasks of daily life. Classical education becomes your way of life, and that's how we feel at Coram Deo. We have different roles between school and parents, so I'd like to define those. The school's role is we believe that it's really the parents' responsibility, not the state's, to educate the children. And so the school's authority over the children is only delegated to us from parents who have enlisted their child into the program. And so if you choose to educate your child classically at home, then you have really taken this responsibility to heart. Most parents have not they themselves been classically educated. And so to recover these tools for yourself so that you're equipped to teach these tools to your student is quite a task. We're here to help you. As you can imagine, this kind of collaboration between parent, student, and teacher, the school labors together, and we believe that the prize for doing this is varying degrees of educational achievement. And we believe that average parents like you and me, with average students like mine and yours, can certainly succeed and thrive in the classical education model and bring glory to God by doing so. Hopefully I've been able to answer some questions that you would have had. There's an idea I'd like to portray from Dr. Christopher Perrin. We use his logic materials in our school. He says, give a man a fish and he eats a meal. Teach him how to fish and he eats for a lifetime. We would like to teach students how to fish. Only they're fishing for knowledge and they're feeding their minds. The pole, the line, and the hook are those tools that have been lost. Their grammar, logic, and rhetoric that we're trying to recover. And with them always in their tackle box, the children will always know that they can seek knowledge. Thank you so much for listening. And if you need more information, you can go to the website, and we would love to meet you soon. Thanks.